had done, we had done up to the verse number 3. Savda sparshadayo vidya vaichitriya jagare prathaga tato vibhaktat sambhed eka rupyat navidyate. So, very clearly, what you are trying to say is that during the Jagrata Avastha, whatever you are watching with the help of that consciousness. And that consciousness remains one. You have Ghata Jnana, you have Pata Jnana. You may be aware of, kindly mute yourselves. I request kindly all of you mute yourselves. Yeah. Okay. So, because what happens is that he is giving the example of the sky. So, even though we might divide the sky with different adjectives, thus, this is spot space, this is the space within my house, this is the space within your house. These distinction between different spaces are only names. Essentially, space or akasa is only one tattva. We might differentiate that this is the Indian sky, this is Pakistan sky, that's Vietnam sky, this is Myanmar sky. Sky is one. Similarly, so the difference is with reference to the upadhis or certain superimpositions, certain adjectives. Similarly, whenever during the waking state you have awareness of different objects, and as we discussed, that our 5 Gyanendriya sense organs will relate us, link us up with different objects of perception. The nose can smell, the eyes can see, the ears can hear, the eyes can't hear, the nose can't see. They have specific domains of reality which they can access. And then you have the internal sense organ, the mind, and we sort of assimilate everything and we have a composite picture of any object as having rupa, its appearance, then its smell, its size, right, and sparsha, everything. We assimilate, we have a composite picture of it. However, the knowledge of its appearance, the knowledge of its smell, the knowledge of its sound, the knowledge of its touch, the knowledge of its whatever, the drabatva, the rasa, which you may test its taste. These awarenesses are just one awareness. We might distinguish them by using adjectives. Why is he so keen to emphasize on unity? Is that during the waking state, we are looking at a whole diverse reality in samsara, but the consciousness through which we make sense of the diversity remains one. We are conscious of X, we are conscious of Y, we are conscious of Z. All that is fine because there is a distinction between different objects of perception. But the consciousness in which they are getting reflected, that consciousness remains one. There's no distinction in that consciousness. Having explained that, he further went on to explain what happens during the dream state. In the dream state, similarly, we see myriad dreams, myriad objects. There is one distinction, one might say, the way the consciousness remains the same during the waking state, the consciousness also remains the same during dream state. There is a little difference between the dream and the waking state. Why so? In the dream state, the reality you perceive is not independent of this mind. It's all created within your mind. Therefore, what does he say there? I've also sort of, so we have done this already. Tatha sopni travedyam tu Na sthiram jagare sthiram tad vedo tastayoh samved ekarupana vidyate. Tatha swapne, yatha jagare, tatha swapne. The way yatha jagare, he writes in the commentary, yatha jagare vaichityad vishayanam vedaha. Why all these vishayas are different? Vishaya means objects of perception, they are all different from each other. Because you have that vaichitya, there's a diversity. They are different. So you are also experiencing as if they are different. However, ekarupya sambid abhedasya, the consciousness through which you see A, B, C, D, or N1, N2, N3 up till N, infinity, all that you are seeing, the consciousness through which you perceive it remains undifferentiated and one. The differentiation of the consciousness that we do mentally, that time my mind was observed in this. I was in a yogic state. Right now I'm in an intellectual frame of mind. Now I'm very emotional. Now I'm in a very poetic frame of mind. The best of minds, a poet cannot write a poem every day or every time. There's a certain mood in which he's able to write beautiful lyrical lines to express even a very simple experience. And all the times he may be baffled by a situation, he may be overwhelmed with the emotion to describe something, and yet the words may elude him. The fear of the blank page, as they say, might strike him. He may be struck with the blank page, not being able to express those emotions in words. So definitely there are distinctions. No, this Acharya is explaining, no, no, no. It's not about the difference in consciousness. It's about the kind of coloring of that consciousness that happens. Moods are created. These are all happening in buddhi. We'll explain going forward. These changes are in buddhi. These are in the manas. The changes, because these are vikaris. They keep changing. What doesn't change? What doesn't change is that consciousness. They are all getting projected and playing out in that consciousness, which is grand, unified one. All of us appearing as all different in that grand, one, unified consciousness. All our buddhis, they keep changing. You have sadbuddhi, asadbuddhi, papa buddhi, punya buddhi. Now, papa punya will not touch the consciousness. Papa punya will not touch your atma. Therefore, in fact, the Vedantic way of counseling or explaining somebody, they keep on harping on this particular simple thing. If somebody is too depressed, they say, yeah, you have depression. You are not depressed. You have an experience of depression or a mood which is depression. You are not your mood. You are not your deed. You are not your success. You are not your failure. You are pure consciousness. These are appearing and disappearing. These are vikaris. These are modulations. These are changes. What is changeless in that pure consciousness? And that is the beauty of this whole approach that we are approaching. That we have dualities, we have diversities, we have complexities and contradictions. But that pure consciousness, which is our Swarupa, there is neither any conflict or contradiction. There is no diversity, no complexity. There is no papa, there is no punya. It is beyond all these. These are intermediate realities where we are passing through which we identify with these layers. Then these realities become obvious and perfect and insurmountable, unavoidable for us. But they are the ones that you can supersede, go beyond, let go of, and be your pure consciousness. That's what Vedanta is going to inspire us to do. Therefore, he's saying, Tatha Swapne Atra Vedyam tu. He's saying, Yatha Jagare Vaichityad Vishayanang Vedaha. The way in the waking state, the Vishayas, the objects of perception, there is diversity. Eko Rupya Samvidaha Avedasya. However, the consciousness remains the same. Tatha Tena Eva Prakarena. In the same manner. Swapne, in the dreams. Karaneshu Sangriteshu Jagarita Sanskarajaha Pratyaha Savishayaha Swapnaha. First, he's trying to explain why dream reality cannot be completely a new creation. It's very interesting. We got to accept it's a very sophisticated argument he's making. Whatever we see in the dream state, if you look deeper into it, of course, some famous writers have written about it, and many of you are doing a lot of research. There is this famous book called Dreams, Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud. Carl Jung wrote his own book, Man and His Symbols, in which talking about why we see dreams and what do these dreams mean. In fact, he was so influenced and inspired by Indian philosophy, he came and spent some time here, that he's saying it's possible for you to, in fact, look at your own real life as a dream. And the way in the dream you receive signals about future, you can also receive in real life signals about what's going to happen. It's a very interesting book. Now, the moot point which they're trying to make here is like this, that our dreams are made up of two elements. One is sanskara, the other one is vasana. You have certain hidden desires, certain inclinations. Vasana also comes out of what has kind of is lying deep within you. As vasana is not desire, it's something encrypted data which is lying hidden in our consciousness or in our subconscious. And these data which is lying there, and then there are past impressions. You are making use of these impressions which have been gathered by the mind during the waking state. You have seen a horse, you have seen a swan, you have seen an elephant, and you have seen a football match, and you have participated in it, either directly in the stadium or maybe on the television or on the YouTube. You have seen these things. Now, depending on the sanskara and the vasana and the orientation and the mind and the dream, what happens is the subconscious person kind of shuffles these facts and data to construct. It builds up. Like you have these AI tools these days, you give them an order. Can you paint me Ma Saraswati? This is the occasion. I want to wish my child or my nephew or my students. Can you give me a picture of Ma Saraswati teaching in a classroom and inspiring students to study hard? It draws a picture for you. Where does it get this data? It picks up these information, Ma Saraswati classroom, these data it informs, and then it interprets and puts them together and gives you a new picture. That's what exactly the subconscious mind does when we are asleep. With sanskara and avasana, it creates an image. So there is a football match, interestingly, where you have the swans, ducks, dogs, and horses on one side, and you have elephants and lions and giraffes and donkeys on the other side. And there's a football match. Funny, you're watching it, you're having a good fun. But this whole dream is a creation which is not independent of what you have experienced during the waking state. That is what he's trying saying. Karneshu upasangriteshu jagarita sanskarajaha, whatever you have picked up. And sanskarajaha pratyaha savishayaha swapnaha. So you have some bodha, and it is some object of perception that is savishayaha. It's not nirvishaya. You are seeing certain objects of your perception. That is how it's defined as swapnaha. Ityukta lakshanayam, swapnavastayam api. This is how it's defined. This is the definition of swapna. And in that dream state, swapnavastayam api, vishaya eva bhinnahana samviditi. So only the objects that you see in your dream, the horses, the swans, the donkeys, the elephants, and the all that you see in the dream is playing a football, they are different from each other. The consciousness through which you see that remains the same. It's not different from your waking state consciousness. So consciousness is one, you described as waking state, where there is Vishaya Indriya Sharnikarsha. You have sense organs and the objects of perception. There is some relation which is established, and you have Vishaya Jnana. You call it Jagrata Avastha. Because you are seeing a book. There is an object, there is a connection. However, in the dream, you're seeing a book, but there is no book. There is no Indriya Vishaya Sannikarsha. There is no necessity for it. It's created within. But how? Based on this Sannikarsha, which has happened during a waking state, can you ever see a dream in which you are watching a book? That's what he's explaining. Na samviditi, conscious is not different. No. Now the student is having a doubt in the mind. ननु यदि स्वप्न जागरयोर एककारता विषय तत्संविद संविदोहो भेदा भेदाभ्याम. Now you have Vishaya and a Samvid. Bheda is there, Vishaya and Samvid. When? During waking state. The book is not your consciousness. You're seeing the book. Vishaya and Samvid, Sambheda is there. And during dream state, it's all happening within your consciousness. So Bheda Bhedabhyam Tari Shopna Jagarite Bheda Vyavaharaha King Nimittaka Ityasankya Aha. He's saying, okay, so you are saying that the difference between waking state and dream state is determined by one filter. And what is that filter? What is that consideration? Consideration is whether the object of what you see and the consciousness are one or different. In the dream state, it's all created within. That's why it's dream. It's outside in waking state. Therefore, it's outside. Now, if that is the argument, it's because it's a conditional difference. Then please tell me, this is dream, this is waking state. How can you say it's all one thing? It's only one filter with which you are making a distinction. Iti vyavahara king nimittaka. Because of what you are making this vyavahara. Atra vedyam tu iti. So he's saying atra vedyam in the swapna kala. Atra swapne vedyam. Whatever you are seeing in your dream state, the printing is not very good here. Paridrishyamanam vastu. Let me look at another. Let me look at the book here. I have this. Yeah. Tata tebhyo vivakta buddhya no tatra tavat. Ha. So he's saying prakarana twapne karneshu upasangriteshu. All your indriyas have been withdrawn. Karneshu upasangriteshu jagarita संस्कारजः प्रत्ययः स विषयः स्वप्न इत्युक्त लक्षणायां स्वप्नवस्थायां अपि विषया एव भिन्नः न संविदिति. We have explained up till now. ननु यदि स्वप्न जागरयोर एककारता विषय संविदोः भेदा भेदाभ्याम. So you have Veda and Aveda. In dream there is Aveda. In Jagrata Avastha there is Veda between objects of perception and the consciousness. If that is the consideration, there is Shopno Jagara iti Veda Vyavaharaha King Nimittakaha. Then how would you say that, okay, this is dream, this is reality in the waking state? King Nimitta Ityasankya Atra Vedyam Tuiti. Then he's explaining Atra Swapne Vedyam. Whatever is Vedya, Vedya is what you see, what you know. Vedya, Vid is to know, Vedya is what you know. Swapne Vedyam, that means what? Paridrishya Manam. Essentially, what you see in the dream. Whether you see a horse or a cat, you see your daughter, you see your grandma, whatever. Vastu jatam stiram sthai kalantarepi drashtum योग्यत्वात् अतः स्थिरा स्थिर विषयत्व लक्षण वैलक्षणात् तद भेदः तयोः स्वप्न जागरयोर भेदः इत्यर्थः. Now he is saying swapna and jagar avastha, I would give you a very good consideration with which you can distinguish. Sambit remains one, no problem. You have to accept it. And he will give a further argument. The consciousness with which you are experiencing a reality in the dream state, the consciousness with which we are experiencing reality during our waking state remains the same. There is essentially one simple difference. We call it, there's not much difference. In the waking state, what we experience as reality is more stable. Why? You see a phone, it's on the table, it's intersubjectively verifiable, as I mentioned yesterday, that the reality in the waking state is intersubjective. You see a horse, I see a horse. You cannot see a donkey and I will see a horse. There'll be a fight. It has to have the same thing, otherwise it will go for a toss. I would say that, okay, this is the passport office is in this corner of the city, and you will see the passport in another corner of the city, or you will see a post office there. That's problematic. So it is intersubjectively verifiable. It's theta. In a simple way, it's stable. Whether it's in the dream world, it's very unstable because it has no externality. It's all within. Therefore, that is how we are maintaining our distinction in understanding between what is waking state and what is dream state. Then he's saying, Nanu स्वप्न जागरयोर भेदः च एतत् संविदुरोपि भेदः स्यात्. Okay, sir. So now you see the student is having a sharp question. In our tradition, there is something called a Purva Paksha. And there is a Uttara Paksha or Siddhanta Paksha. It's a beautiful dialogical tradition. A lot of people would say, why are these people a little quarrelsome? Indians are like, Amartya Sen wrote that book, The Argumentative Indian. Essentially, the truth of the matter is, dialogue comes very normally to us. If you look at our spiritual traditions, there is Pita Putra Sambhada, Yama Savitri Sambhada, Yama Nachiketa Sambhada. There is a dialogue. Somebody is asking, somebody is answering. There is nothing real and it's X and it's Y. You have to do it, otherwise you're going to be put to death. Nothing of that sort. It's dialogical. It's an exploration where both the parties are participating. And dialogues are of different kinds in our tradition. So you have Jalapa, where the purpose of the argumentation is in fact to defeat the other person. There is Bitanda, where you do not assume or state your position, but your goal is in fact to reject the counter position by showing its internal contradictions, like defense lawyers do. You say, oh, really, you are trying to give this theory, but there are flaws in your argument. So you are essentially using the premise of somebody else arguing with you to show internal conflicts or contradictions or inconsistencies in his or her argument. That is Bitanda. You are not stating what's your position. The famous book is Khandana Khandakadya by Sriharsha Mishra, one of the sharpest minds. Then you have Jalpa, where you are essentially trying to Nava Vastrani. So he's saying, 9 saris, but he just gives you one new cloth. Then what is this? No, you Nava is new clothes. He said, no, I'll give you 5, 9 because Nava means 9. So this is Jalpa. He's trying to cheat you. There is something called Chala. This example I gave is of Chala. Jalpa is you will argue just to defeat. But there's a beautiful way of argumentation which happens between Guru and the Shishya. Like Lord Shiva and Parvati have these whole sambhadas. Especially it's called Bada Katha. Bada is when both the people who are participating in the dialogue are looking for truth together. And I see a striking similarity between what we call Bada Katha. In fact, in the Bible, there's a point where Jesus says, let you and I argue together. We shall argue, but together. There's no, like, for example, we have the Santi Mantra, right? Ma bidvisha vahe. There should not be lack of togetherness. But with a sense of unity, we are planning to look for the truth, which is very interesting. And much more explicitly, it's mentioned in our tradition. Now, why am I mentioning all this? You will find as we are progressing in discussion of Panchadashi, you will always have a defense lawyer. Now, what happens where a person is accused of having done any kind of wrong thing and he has to be convicted? Can he be convicted in India without a defense lawyer? No, you cannot have a trial without defense. Therefore, government will assign him a defense lawyer who will argue his case so that we can actually reach a conclusion with justification that whether he should be convicted or not. Right? Similarly, here there is no Purva Paksha. The Sastrakara or the Acharya himself brings into consideration, he imagines a Purva Paksha and tries to point at an argument which could be a likely weakness of his own. He puts forth that argument against himself and then he negates it, he mitigates it, he resolves it, saying that no, that's not a good argument. So this is in order to strengthen the position of the Siddhanti. So you have Purva Paksha and Uttara Paksha. So henceforth, in our discussion on Panchadashi, I would be referring to him as Purvapakya, who is a defense lawyer. So what is the argument of the Purvapakya? He's saying, no, no. However, Shopna Jagarayor Vedaha cha etad Sambidoropi Vedaha. You are saying Swapna and Jagara are different because in Jagaravastha, you have the Vishayas are sthira, and in Swapnavastha, they are asthira. Okay, that's a very good thing. So the consciousness with which I see these objects during dream and waking state, let that be different. What's your problem? The Samvid in waking state and Samvid in Swapnavastha could differ. No, what's your problem? Let's agree. Then he wins, right? He can bring in duality. Therefore, he's saying, he's explaining. Tayoho iti. He's saying, Tayoho, what is this? Tayoho sambheda eka rupan avidyate. However, the consciousness with which you are aware of these waking state reality and dream state reality is one because it is eka rupa. Swarupatha is eka eva. Eka rupa iti hetugarva visheshanam. That eka rupa, it's called hetugarva visheshanam because it's playing the role of a causal factor as an adjective. Why didn't she do it? Yeah, but why she will not come to the party? No, he's not going to come. Why? He's a very orthodox Vaishnava, and this party that you're having, you will be serving recipes with onion garlic. Swaha Vaishnava eva. The Hetu Garva Visheshana. You're just giving one adjective, which is in fact explaining a lot of things. Okay? Now, this is how we sort of concluded the discussion on the fourth sutra, and then we'll go to the fifth sloka of this. Now we are transitioning into the third state of knowing. You have knowing during the waking state, you have knowing during the dream state. We have discussed both. The Chaitanya or the consciousness remains the same. We have slight differences as to why we refer to them as waking and dream state. Now we're going to go into a state called the Susupti stage, where we don't have any Vishaya. It's called deep sleep in yoga, in Sankhya, in Vedanta. That deep sleep state is what? Especially in Vedanta, the deep sleep state is one in which there are no activities of the brain. Why? Because during the dream state, the Indriyas have gone to sleep. They are on vacation. Manas is not on vacation. No. Manas is on duty. It's on emergency duty during the dream state. So it does its own magic. It does its drama. It is this, the single-handedly it creates realities and enjoys it. Manas is on job. Then comes the mega vacation. It's a national holiday. Nobody's on job kind of a situation. So the Bahyendriyas have gone to sleep on vacation. Manas, the internal sense organ, is on vacation. All go to sleep. Buddhi, no manas, no dreams. What is there? There's nothing. Then what happens is that when we go to that, that they call it, that you have dream of different kinds where you have some quick eye movements and sometimes you don't have. And there's a lot of sleep experts, they do some research that there are moments where you are in a very deep state where you don't remember anything at all. When you wake up, what do you say? What happened? I called you 4 times, you didn't respond. No, actually, I forgot about it. I crashed and I got into deep sleep. And I had such a good sleep. And I don't know what happened. Some people had come to your house. Maybe I am not aware. I was dead. That is the language you use. I was dead. I don't know anything that happened. And I have absolutely no recollection of anything. Now, the Vedanti is arguing like this, that you are able to say that you had a lovely sleep. Was there a knower or there was no knower? Can you remember something that you have not experienced? You say it was a lovely play. If you are able to say it was a lovely play, you are definitely there. Either you heard from somebody, but mostly you are being able to say it was a lovely play because you watched that play. You're witness to it. Now, during the deep sleep, there is no Vishaya outside of you. Your consciousness is just there, but the Indriyas are asleep. So there is no connectivity internally or external. Either through the mind or through the external organs, there is no connection with Vishaya, there is no Vishaya. But then, how can you say there is no Vishaya? Because you are being able to remember that you had a wonderful experience of sleep, right? You are remembering when you woke up. During deep sleep, you had no understanding. Ahankara is nothing is there. It's all in this sleep mode. You fold the computer screen, everything enters into the sleep mode. And when you open it, everything comes alive. All the windows and tabs. Similarly, during the deep sleep state, everything is in a sleep mode. What's going on? Nothing going on. But when you wake up, you're able to say that I had a lovely sleep means you have experienced it. And who experienced it? And what did it experience? I didn't know anything. So you are able to experience your ajnana, that you did not know anything. Like sometimes you say, do you know anything about it? I don't know nothing about it when you say. Look at it. You know nothing when you say this. You know, there is a knowing aspect, and then you know nothing. I mean, there's an ignorance aspect. So, in a way, the ignorance is the object of your description that I know nothing. Nothing is the object of your knowing. What is known here? Your own ignorance. Like Socrates famously said, that my only wisdom is that I know that I do not know. That's the best example of what we are discussing right here. So I know that I don't know. So, what is the subject matter of his knowledge? His own ignorance. Similarly, the argument here is that there must be some knowledge, some anubhava, some experience during the deep sleep. Therefore, when you and I wake up from deep sleep, we are able to say that there was a lovely sleep that I experienced. I experienced happiness during the deep sleep. Now, using that, what are we trying to drive at? We are driving at 2 points. Number one, there is a knower even deep sleep. Mind is asleep, sense organs are asleep, intellect is asleep, but there is somebody out there, the knower. And that is the Sakshi Chaitanya, the witness self. That is some myth. That is that pure consciousness. That pure consciousness is beyond, it's in fact something which lights up even our buddhi and our intellect and our memory, everything. That is the founder. That is the one which illuminates everything. That is Sakshi, number one. Number two, there is also some knowing happening. If there was no knowing, you cannot have a remembrance of it. So, this is how Vedanta is trying to establish that there is consciousness even in deep sleep, and that consciousness is different from buddhi or the mind, the intellect, the emotional self, all that. They are all asleep, the consciousness stays. That is what is the point. So let's look at the sloka. It's a beautiful sloka. Suptotitasya so supta tamabodha bhavet smritihi sa cha babuddha vishaya babuddham tattada tamaha. Supto uthitasya. So what is he trying to say? That if a person is deeply asleep and then he wakes up. Okay. A person is deep asleep and then he wakes up. What happens? Supto uthitasya, the person who wakes up from his deep sleep. So supta tamaha bodha smritireva bhaveta. So there was some knowledge without which he will not be able to say aham sukham aswapsam na kinchid avedisham, मैं बड़े सुख से सोया कुछ नहीं जान पाया. I a wonderful sleep. I don't know nothing what happened during that period. I had such a wonderful sleep. So that wonderful thing he's being able to say because he must have experienced it. When you have experienced it, and then you are later day trying to remember, it's called smriti. Okay. So jnana in our tradition is differentiated into two kinds. Smritir anubhavasya, jnanam dvividham. There are two types, smritihi and anubhavasya. And what is smritihi? Sanskara matra janya jnanam smritihi. Only because of sanskara. That means there is no anubhava. But in case of prativijna, or when you are looking at an old friend, okay, and she was a girl and you were a boy, you were in school, and today she has a big boy and she has a big girl. She's a mom of two children and she was with her husband. She was a little girl. She was maybe 10, 12. You're very close friends. Your parents were good friends. And you meet her after some 20, 30 years and she has two kids. And you remember, okay, Sa Iyam, let's imagine her name is Sita or Shefali or Smriti or anything. Okay. Sa Iyam Sefali. How do you say this? That little girl, the baby girl who was my friend, is this lady, Mrs. Sefali, was to husband. She's a professional. Now here you have memory of that girl, but you also have anubhava right now. You are experiencing her. So this is not pure smriti, right? It's called prativijna, tatta idanta. You have tatta jnana, thatness and thisness which you are experiencing. It's a mixture of smriti and anubhava. Sanskara matra janya jnanam smritihi. When they are saying this in Tarka Shastra, the essential point being made is that smriti is that which is born out of sanskara. And what is sanskara? Sanskara is what you have already experienced, and that is getting repeated in your mind without the help of any indriya sarnikarsha with any external object. You don't require anything. You had gone to Badrinath and somebody had given you a Brahma Kamala, a very precious, considered very precious. Somebody gave you a Brahma Kamala, and people keep it even if it is dry, and it was fresh. Then after some time, you're sitting in your drawing room. There is no dry or wet or fresh Brahma Kamala. It just strikes you Brahma Kamala. You're reading something on Advaita Vedanta. Brahma Kamala comes to your mind. It's born out of what? This knowledge of this is sanskara janya jnanam smritihi. Now, whenever there is smriti, because it's sanskara janya and sanskara is possible only when there is anubhava, therefore you must have experienced something during your deep sleep. What did you experience? Your ajnana. Na kinchida vedisham. I couldn't know anything. Why couldn't you say this when you were asleep? No, because you were a deep sleep. Who will say that? But the proof of the thing that you have experienced comes out of your statement that I had a wonderful sleep. There must be an experiencer of that wonderful sleep for us to be able to say that we had a wonderful sleep. We had. So we are telling or intending to say that there was somebody present who could experience that nice sleep, that Sushupti Kala. He's saying, Susupta Damabodha Smritireva Bhavet na Anubhavaha, because you are not aware, you are not awake. So Anubhava can happen only in Jagrata Avastha, sometimes, and in Swapna Avastha, which is Abhashika or Pratibhashika Anubhava. Saja Ababuddha Vishaya. Tat tasmat karanat sosuptam tamah tada avabuddham. Sacha. That smriti, avabuddha vishaya. There is something you are remembering. You have to have some ababodha. They said some knowing. That is how you are remembering what you had experienced. Sacha sa smriti sa avabuddha vishaya. Tat tasmat karanat tat tasmat sosuptam. That sosuptam tamaha tada avabuddham. So therefore, in that deep sleep state, you have experienced your own ignorance of the external world, and you are now remembering it. Vyutpattihi, saying sosupta tamaha susupto bhavaha sosuptaha atisayena sosuptaha. Sosupta tamaha, tama pratyaya, that is essentially saying sosupta tama means what? That what you experience during the deep sleep. Purva suptaha paschaduthitaha susuptothitaha. First you are deep asleep and now you are waking up. That means you woke up from sleep. Suptam susuptihi tasmad uthita itiva. So you are sleeping, now you are woken up. Susuptothitaha. Then he's saying tasya sosupta tamabodhaha, of that person who had a good sleep. He's woken up and then he's saying, I couldn't know anything. So supta tamabodha, he has that ababodha experience from the deep sleep.
I'm, I'm not able to hear Swamiji. I think Swamiji got disconnected.
Not audible, Swamiji.
I think Swamiji got disconnected. Can anyone respond? I'm not able to hear Swamiji.
I think Swamiji is not connected. I think.
That's right. Navgal Babu, are you online? ସଂଗ୍ରାମ ବାବୁ ଆମେ କ'ଣ ଅପେକ୍ଷା କରିବା ନା ଖାଲି ଡିସକନେକ୍ଟ?
ହଁ ଆମେ ଡିସକନେକ୍ଟ କରିଦେବା ଆଉ କ'ଣ କରିବା ଆଜ୍ଞା ସ୍ୱାମୀଜୀ
ହଁ
କନେକ୍ଟ ହଉନି।
ହଁ ଠିକ ଅଛି ଠିକ ଅଛି।
ହଉ ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ।
ନମସ୍କାର ନମସ୍କାର
ନମସ୍କାର।
ନମସ୍କାର।
Is there? Oh, people have disconnected. Okay, no problem. We'll meet again next week. Okay. So I got disconnected. I could not know. Anyway, we'll meet again.